Good evening, everybody. I would like to start by handing over the duties of introduction to Mr. Stuart Chase. Stuart?
Good evening. My name is Stuart Chase. I am the Senior Vice President at Rediscover. We're a community mental health center that serves Southern and Eastern Jackson County, including the community of Raytown. And I currently serve as the chair of the Government Relations Committee for the Raytown Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. And that is an organization that has proudly served the Raytown business community since 1929. So we'd like to welcome everyone this evening and thank all those joining us via Zoom tonight. We'd especially like to welcome our candidates. We'd also like to thank our co-sponsor for this evening's event, the League of Women Voters. One last thing, we encourage everyone to vote on April 6th. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Sandy Eads, who will act as our moderator for this evening's activities. Sandy.
Stuart, thanks very much. Good evening. Welcome to all of you for this Zoom Candidates Forum. It is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties, and the Raytown Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. I'm Sandy Eads. I live in Kansas City, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, and I will be moderating tonight. Anitra Steele, the League's chair of forums, will monitor the chat for questions, or the Q&A rather. And Rachel Thompson is running the Zoom desk and will manage the countdown clock. This year, 2021, the League begins its second century empowering voters and defending democracy. The League of Women Voters is organized at the local, state, and national levels, and our membership is open to people of voting age. And since 1974, that includes men. There are over 700 member leagues representing 500,000 members and active supporters serving millions of voters during every election cycle. We're a nonpartisan organization and we do not endorse candidates. On the other hand, the League has always been issue-oriented and advocates at all levels of government for our positions on these issues. We base our advocacy after careful study and with the consensus of our members. The League is well known for its voter services activities, taking part in voter registration, as well as candidate debates and forums while bringing focus to the issues. Our popular website, vote411.org, will give you information about your particular ballot, including candidates, ballot issues, and more. The site is now live, so take time to visit vote411.org. In addition to this Zoom event, we are also live streaming this webinar on Facebook. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to the candidates for being responsive to voters. Tonight, we will hear from the following candidates for the City of Raytown Alderman. In Ward 1, Ian Scott and Jayne Loulos. Alderman Ward 2, Tony Jacob and Loretha Hayden. Alderman Ward 3, Brian Myers. Alderman Ward 4, Bill VanBuskirk. And Alderman Ward 5, Bonnaye Mims. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer each question and will have 2 minutes to make closing statements. We'll have a countdown clock that'll warn candidates when time is about to expire. The idea is to get as many questions answered as we can before closing. We've determined a random order of response by the candidates, and that will guide us as we go through that. So first, I'd like to offer the candidates a 30-minute introduction if they would. So we'll start with Bill VanBuskirk. Bill?
Thank you. I appreciate the privilege to participate in this, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters and our Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this. It's always an honor to address the people of our community and the people of the ward I represent. I have just a little bit of background on me. My wife and I have been a homeowner here in Raytown since 1972. We moved into this house when it was new then, and still in the same house. We've been married for, well, be 57 years coming up this year, so quite a while. We've had 4 boys graduate from Raytown South High School. Uh, I've proudly served as an alderman with the city now for 12 years, and it'll be a privilege to serve another 4. And so I still have the
Your
same.
time is up, Mr. Buskirk. Sorry.
Is my 30 seconds up?
Yes.
Could you give me someone else's 30 seconds too? No, kidding.
Yeah, you've kind of done that.
I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see if everybody can find 30 seconds to do this. Bonnaye, Mims.
Good evening. I'm gonna keep mine very short, and I want to thank the Women's League of Voters for having this forum, and I truly appreciate it. Secondly, I think I want to say I have served 4 years in Raytown, and I was pleased to see that I didn't have an opponent this time, which is the first time in 48 years as a public servant. I am a mother of 4, grandmother of 8, and a great grandbaby, and I listen to my constituents. And I'm just going to let you know, I'm going to go and stop there. I've been involved in the political scene for 48 years, and I'll stop here and wait for the questions. Thank you.
Tony Jacob.
All right, thank you. My name's Tony Jacob. I'm running for Alderman in Ward 2. Anybody that knows me knows that I can speak really fast, take 5 minutes, and still have plenty to say. So 30 seconds or 90 seconds is going to be a challenge. I'm a post commander up at the VFW. I'm a disabled American veteran, and I just want to make, improve Raytown, reduce the crime, make transparent, efficient government, and improve our infrastructure. Thank you.
Jayne Loulos.
Hi, my name is Jayne Loulos. I'm running for Alderman in Ward 1. Like Tony, I'm interested in improving Raytown. I've been here since 1996. And it has been a good run, but I see that there's some improvements that can be made, and it's not always the other guy that is going to do it. So sometimes you have to step up yourself and see about making some changes.
Thank you. Ian Scott.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ian Scott. I'm a first-time candidate running for Alderman Ward 1. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for having this opportunity to speak with you tonight. And I look forward to the honor of hopefully being able to serve our city, where my wife and I are raising our 5 kids. I live here, work here, go to church here, and I really love Raytown and look forward to the opportunity of cooperating and serving with our city council and staff and administrator and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Loretha Hayden.
Hi, I'm Loretha Hayden, and I'm running for Alderman in Ward 2. I am married to my life partner, Tony Hayden, and have 4 children, 5 grandchildren. We've lived in Raytown for 20 years. I have a small business in Raytown, Luffy's Fried Fish. We've had that business in Raytown for 14 years now. I'm retired from State Farm Insurance after 32 years. I have been active in the community and serve on several volunteer boards, including the past chair of the board of Chamber of Commerce. I am part of although Love United, my church, is not a part of Raytown. I've always been active in the church, and I just appreciate the League of Women Voters for having me.
Thank you very much. Ryan Myers.
Thank you. I'm Ryan Myers, and I'm running to be a Ward 3 Alderman, running for re-election. So I'm a graduate of Raytown High School, and I'm a former coach of the Raytown High School swim team. I hold a bachelor's degree in economics from Kansas State University, and I'm currently finishing up my first term as Alderman in Ward 3. And additionally, I've been elected by my peers. I'm currently serving my second term as Mayor Pro Tem for the city of Raytown.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to get right into questions, and the order has deemed that Ms. Mims, you are first. So, based on the findings of the recently conducted audit by the state of Missouri, is the city doing enough to assure that citizens' best interests are being protected? What are your key concerns raised in the audit, and how would you address them?
I guess what I should say in the audit, a lot of the things that was brought up in the audit were things that had already been taken care of with the new administration that we have presently. So it was things that was based on what had happened in the past. That's to start off. The first thing that I'm going to say was a key thing for me was making sure that we maintain a budget. When we came on this board, well, actually say when I came 4 years ago, we were struggling with the budget piece. So there was a lot of things that people wanted to address, like infrastructure and taking care of the streets, which we didn't have a lot of funding to make that go through. A lot, and then they wanted to just kind of beat up on some of the items that needed. So making sure we had people in place that had the credentials to do the jobs and to be able to carry it out correctly, and to make sure that we didn't fall into any problems again. That was second. That was number one. Number two was to make sure we had a strong police force, someone in there that knew what they were doing. And we have an excellent police chief at the present time that knows what it is to do for the police department. A lot of people got upset about the cut of the police department, but that's another piece that I'll share later, because that was something that the board was trying their best not to do. So making sure you have the right people in place to take care of the things that are needed. Then you move into the process of getting those items done. So infrastructure was the next thing, and our folks have started working on that and making sure that they got the key items. And updating was another thing that was needed in Raytown, was to update some of the stuff, put us on the map, make sure that Raytown was going to be respected like every other county and city is. And that is what was some of the key things that I needed, because people kept bypassing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hayden.
Well, I reviewed the audit, and it was a 24-page audit. I noticed that all of the items on the audit had already been addressed. It either showed that it was in progress or completed. So there's nothing that really stood out to me. Probably the thing that I looked at most, because I'm on the park board, is that I looked at the issues with the park board, and we had already begun to address that. So my opinion of the audit is that I think we should have done better than the fair grade based on the definition, especially since, again, all entries were either we had already completed it per the recommendations, or it was in progress. There was no malfeasance, there was no stealing of money, none of that in that audit. What they told us is things that we could do better. And we took that, the administration took that, started doing that, or else they're in the progress of doing that.
Thank you. By the way, anytime I need to repeat a question, please don't hesitate to ask me. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, could you repeat the question for me?
Absolutely.
Please?
Based on the findings of the recently conducted audit by the state of Missouri, is the city doing enough to assure that citizens' best interests are being protected? What are your key concerns raised in the audit, and how would you address them?
Yes, I do think that the city is doing a good job of protecting the interests of voters and taxpayers around Raytown. Seeing that basically everything was already either taken care of or in progress by the time the audit actually came out tells me that not only is the city on top of things, but they were willing to work with and accept recommendations of someone coming in and poking through. You know, sometimes people coming into your house telling you you need to do this and that better. Sometimes that's not very comfortable, but our city said, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I like your input. Thank you. That's a great avenue of transparency for our city to the people, the voters and the taxpayers. Some of the things that, a couple of the items that I really appreciated that I saw action being taken on were evaluation of the severance packages and setting up accountability affidavits for to make sure that there's no conflict of interest between people interacting with the city. And yeah, I was really pleased about the audit and what I saw in it.
Thanks very much. Mr. VanBuskirk.
Thank you. Well, for one thing, the suggestions made by the auditors were just that. And I think everyone needs to understand that we were not mandated to do anything because we weren't found guilty of doing anything wrong. There was some indiscrepancies as far as bookkeeping that were just disagreements that we had with the auditors. But we agreed to go ahead and make those changes. It was up to us to do that. We didn't have to do it, but we have made several of those. Some of them were made prior to the audit even being finished, as they made suggestions as we went along. The cost of the audit was close to $100,000. Certainly money that could have been well spent elsewhere. And as Ms. Mims related to earlier, it's tough sometimes finding the funding for some of the things that we need to do. So I feel like that was $100,000 kind of down the drain. The fair rating would have been better, I believe, had the auditors given us that rating rather than the state auditor herself. And they indicated that when they talked to us as a council.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was the chief petitioner of the state audit. Not just I collected signatures, but I put together a group of people, most of whom hated each other, and yet I was able to assemble them and encourage them to work together, which is something that I would do on the city council or the board of aldermen as well, is get people in disparate positions to come together. It's interesting that people want to say that this happened long ago. The auditors only reviewed actions in 2018. The other thing I noticed people talking about on some platforms is, oh, it's paperwork, this, that, the other thing. $2 million in transportation sales tax money in the TIF district is unaccounted for. That's a pretty large paperwork discrepancy. $150,000, over $150,000 of conflict of interest policy violations, in addition to multiple tens of thousands of dollars of severance packages and money given out that should not have been given out. And you know, it's right. We got a fair audit, which is virtually the lowest you can get. In fact, the auditor said there were 11 items that needed management's immediate attention, which doesn't sound like a small thing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Loulos.
My only thoughts on it are, I do think the city needs to be transparent and more transparent than it has been as far as where the monies are being spent and being open about where these monies are going. I think that we can spend some monies on getting the roads fixed and getting these parks back to being safer and getting more police hired. So I would like to see that some of these monies that they're not using can be used in a more productive way.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
Thank you. You know, back to the audit, I do have to commend Auditor Galloway and her staff for coming in. They did an excellent job. They were very thorough, and working with them was actually a pleasure. You know, I have to commend them that what they found, no malfeasance, no one went to jail. They did find some efficiency things that could make the city of Raytown more efficient in what we do. And I think that, you know, I lost my train of thought. So the auditors, they found no issues. And I do think that, you know, people are blowing things up out of proportion. And I want to work with the suggestions that the auditor gave us. And that way we can be better stewards of taxpayer dollars, and we can make Raytown a better community to live and play in.
Thank you very much. Moving on to question 2, Mr. VanBuskirk, you're up. The question is, what do you hope to accomplish as a Board of Aldermen member?
Well, as I stated earlier, I've been serving now for 12 years with a lot of different people over the years, and different people on staff, and different mayors, and we've accomplished many good things over the past years. There's still a lot of hard work to be done. There have been hundreds of resolutions, ordinances, and probably thousands and issues before us over the years. And some decisions are easy to make. Others are difficult. It would be impossible to always make decisions that everyone agrees with, but I will weigh all of the information and evidence before me prior to making any decision. My colleagues and I don't always agree, but I'll always do what I think is in the best interest of those I represent. I have a heart for our city, applying common sense to the issues we face and the decisions I make as an alderman. As an independent thinker, I'm not controlled by any political group or faction, and I'll continue to work with whoever is elected to other city offices and with the administrative team, as always. It's a privilege to serve. It always has been. That's why I do it, is to serve our community, and I'll continue to do that with all I have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mims.
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Certainly. What do you hope to accomplish as a Board of Aldermen member?
Accomplish, I think we've done a lot of that, and that's networking with other agencies, from the county all the way down to the state office, for things that are needed in Raytown. We have already, I feel good with the staff we have, that we've got the budget in place, is stable. The accomplishments at this particular point right now that we've gotten that done, we've been trying to update some of our policies and some of our ordinances, but looks like every time we take 2 steps forward, we've got to take 5 back, because people dropped all kind of stuff in the middle of the things that we want to move forward with and get done. So I think one at the present time would be the rental ordinance, to get that one done, go back and look over some of the things on our code of ethics, which holds us as aldermen accountable for how we conduct ourselves in the business that we take care of. One, I don't like micromanaging our staff. With some of that is what happens. I want them to be able to do their job. They're the experts in doing that. Our job is to make sure they can do it. So I want to continue on some of the things that we have started. I won't go into all of them because I'm not sure we're going to get all of them accomplished. But we got a lot done in my first 4 years, and I intend to move forward on getting some of the others. So I'm looking at the infrastructure is the next one that we're looking at, because our director in Public Works has been bringing a lot of stuff forward to put us on the map, so they know where the sewer drains are, where the cracks are, where the streets need to be repaired. And next, you have to have a process. So next is putting that process in place, now getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hayden, you're up.
All right. Would you repeat that question? I just want to make sure I answer it all.
You bet. The question is, what do you hope to accomplish as a Board of Aldermen member?
Okay. So I think that first of all, we would want to finish all the recommendations. Thank you, Bill. The recommendations that the auditors made that are incomplete, those things that are in progress, we need to complete those. And then I would like to work, I really appreciate working with the Board of Aldermen, with the mayor, with the city administrators, work with them and not against them to build up Raytown and not tear it down. And then, of course, we have a crumbling infrastructure. So I agree that we need to take a look at that. And I like that they've already started doing some of that work to try to address the sewer problems that we're having. And then I am a small business owner, so I think economic development is always important, especially with us having the rails and trails coming through Raytown. So I would like to work with the Board of Aldermen to increase economic development, bring some more businesses in here, and try to make a place that Raytown would want to make. People would want to make this place their business and their home. So that would be my accomplishments that I would like to to do.
Thanks very much. Mr. Scott.
What I would like to accomplish as a member of the Board of Aldermen is to be a positive asset to the rest of the board and to the city staff in building on the foundation of the last few years, to continue to address the recommendations in the audit and continue to make headway on the budget. As Ms. Mims pointed out, the budget's been stabilized, and I'd like to see us be able to find innovative and interesting, creative, new revenue streams to be able to accomplish some of the needs of our city. Personally, I want to be able to be an asset in that process, to be able to coordinate and cooperate with everyone I'm involved with, to be able to assist and support the city staff as they're doing their wonderful jobs that they do so well. I have some personal interests that I'd like to see unfold over the next few years. I'd like to see more local business, especially locally owned businesses, mom and pop and stuff like that. And I'd like to see more people in Raytown taking advantage of local businesses. I'd like to see our community come together, developing friendships and better relationships among community members. But mostly what I want, if I serve in this capacity, I want to know that I listened to everyone who came to me and helped them address their needs.
Thank you very much. Ms. Loulos.
I have about a 3-point platform. My first one is I think we need to address the violence and the crime that it is in our neighborhoods and parks. I myself was a victim of it in June 2019 when bullets started coming through my house in the middle of the night from the park that's right in back of me. And then just a few weeks ago, well, maybe it's been more than a few weeks, but maybe a month and a half, where there was more bullets that were flying around and a gentleman got killed. And so I think this is kind of important that we get on top of this, that we have people that are coming over into this area and crime is increasing and the safety is decreasing. And I think that's pretty important to kind of address and maybe hire some more police and let the criminals know that we're not just going to let them take over. The other thing is we do need to get more businesses in. I had applied myself to the committee, did not get picked, but to the committee that to do with bringing businesses in the city. And I do think that we need to look at where we're spending our money and look at some of these streets and curb cuts and sidewalks that are a hazard. And we need to get that addressed.
Thank you very much. Let's see here. Mr. Myers.
There we go. Being unopposed, I can tell you that next month, I'm going to have to work with 20% of a new board, regardless of who gets elected. And what I want to focus on is planning and execution. We're going to plan because we're going to be efficient with our taxpayers' money. Additionally, I chair the Revenue Enhancement Committee. I think we need to find other avenues for revenue enhancement because realistically, the city's mill levy has not been altered by the voters since I believe the mid 1970s. So it's hard to have economic development or have more police officers if we're still writing the same check from 1975 when we're in 2021. Additionally, I was the sponsor of the rental regulations for Raytown. I've had discussions over the last several months with our city staff, and we're polishing that up. I want to make sure that gets completed. Additionally, I want to use my background in economics as well as in real estate to promote economic development within Raytown. We have a blessing that runs right through Raytown that's about to open, and that's the new Rock Island Trail. I think that's going to promote economic development within our community, and I think we need to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that my main issues is to have the transparent, efficient government. One of the things that we can accomplish, instead of kicking the can down the road, every time the new board is elected, they always complain that oh, there's so much that other boards have done. And when you try and fix one thing, two things pop up. And if you ever go to a city council meeting, you'll see that exact same thing happen. An alderman or alderwoman will have something go forward ordinance wise, and then 3 or 4 things pop up to try and stop it. So I think one thing we need to do is stop kicking the can down the road. You know, a year ago we had the rental regulation come up. I warned about unforeseen circumstances, and it turns out now that's what we're seeing, and we're having to race with only a month left to go to try and fix things. Well, the city has 5 other areas, 5 other ordinances that are in direct conflict with state law, including being able to jail people for fines. So being able to clean that up is really nice. Lowering the surging crime rate. Right now, Raytown has a higher murder rate than anywhere in the area. We have more murders than Kansas City, Kansas, which has 3 times the number of people and more murders than Independence. Improving infrastructure is another large idea of mine that everybody likes to talk about. You know, we have a lot of money sitting around that we could definitely use for that. And some of that money we've used to improve City Hall. They've I guess, found some money for that. That's my time. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Myers, the next one comes to you, and it's going to be a bit of a segue to some comments that have been made. With the Rock Island corridor soon to officially open to community use, what is your view on what the city should do to encourage economic development that could increase revenues for the city?
Well, like I said, one of the main things that we need to do is take a look at how our property taxes and our mill levies are calculated. And if we need to take that to the voters and have them decide, that is one avenue that we could take. Additionally, if we want to promote development within Raytown, I can tell you with my real estate background that, you know, there's more, I'll be honest, there's more popular areas to develop within the metro area. So one way that we're going to have to fix that is we're going to have to incentivize it. Now, notice I did not say TIF. There's other ways around incentivizing things. So I think those are some of the tools in our toolbox that Raytown can use. We have a wonderful economic development director that has a long history of being able to redevelop areas and promote new development within communities. So we're blessed to have her, and I look forward to working with her in the future.
Thanks very much. Ms. Hayden.
I'm in agreement with Ryan. We definitely need to increase economic development, as I said before, and that's one of my platforms. But not only increase restaurants, which I love, but retail. And again, make it easier for businesses to come into Raytown and do business in Raytown and to stay in Raytown. And I like the incentivize that Ryan used. Definitely make it more attractive, some kind of way to come into Raytown. And it's not just about coming into Raytown, but staying in Raytown and keeping your business in Raytown. We've been here for 14 years now. And so when the reason that we've been here for as long as we have is that the Raytown community embraced us and helped us and kept us here. So we just need to do more of that as a city, as a community, to try to get businesses here and allow them to stay here.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. Yeah, the Rock Island corridor, it runs right by my house. I'm pretty close to it. So I'm pretty excited that I'm able to jump on it and go either towards the stadium or out towards Lee Summit on a bike, or I guess walk if I need to do that as well, but preferably on a bike. One of the things that I would like to do as far as the enhancement side of thing is encourage businesses to come to Raytown on that Rock Island corridor, but also adjacent to it. Not just right along the strap, but even a couple blocks away, and get people to come out into Raytown, into the different parks that we have, and experience, you know, the Raytown citizens that are amazing, and get that small town community feel as well. Right now, Raytown is not very business friendly. In fact, if you watch the city meetings, you'll even see some aldermen tell applicants, you're not wanted here. And that's just a shame. You can try and start a business here in Raytown. It can take months to get through, where in other communities you can get approved the same day. But we have a process of going through different panels and different boards before you finally get to the Board of Aldermen for a conditional use permit. And you have to have 2 meetings for that. So you're waiting at least a month, assuming they don't suspend the rules. So making sure that we have more ease of starting a business, and then watching out for the potential for crime to increase as it has on other trails. So we need to mitigate that before it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Certainly. With the Rock Highland Corridor soon to officially open to community use, what is your view on what the city should do to encourage economic development that could increase revenues for the city?
Well, like Mr. Myers pointed out, there are more attractive areas around the metropolitan area for economic development. So I think the first thing to do is to evaluate how Raytown compares and what we can do to put ourselves on a more equal footing with some of the other areas around town, and make Raytown just more attractive and more of an interesting option for not only bringing business to Raytown, but people coming to Raytown, to those businesses that we are seeing more and more as a place that I'd like to go to Raytown instead of somewhere else around the metropolitan area, that we start coming up on people's minds more and more across the metropolitan area. Hey, there's stuff in Raytown that I want to go do. Hey, there's stuff in Raytown I want to go see. And pairing that with being innovative and creative in the ways that we generate revenue streams, and taking a good hard look at, again, as Mr. Myers pointed out, how our checkbook is balanced and how our income is generated and calculated off the businesses that are here. We have an excellent opportunity with this trail to set ourselves up to be a very attractive and easy to get to nearby place for people and businesses.
Thank you very much. Mr. VanBuskirk.
Thank you. Well, economic development is something that I've always been an advocate of. I've always felt that we need to be business friendly, and to suggest that we try to chase businesses away is just ludicrous to suggest that. We do have certain rules and regulations that are necessary related to businesses. I think we should not overregulate, but if businesses want to come here, they do have to meet some of those requirements. And so sometimes tough questions have to be asked of people who are wanting to have their businesses here. I do believe taxation should be a last resort, not a first resort. We're overtaxed as it is. You can ask just about any citizen, and they feel they're overtaxed. And it's true that we haven't raised our property tax levy for a long time, but we still get a sizable amount from that. There are other entities that get a huge amount from that, the schools, the fire district, and others. But most of our revenue comes through sales taxes.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Loulos.
I don't think it's a bad idea to take to the voters that was mentioned much earlier. I do think we need to look at the demographics in Raytown besides trying to attract others outside of Raytown. When I was very young in the 70s, we lived in Kansas City, just 3 houses from the Raytown line, but we shopped in Raytown. We went to the little food mart that had their own butcher. We went to Dando's to buy my father's clothing. We went to that supermarket that was right in the corner there for years that had the bowling alley in back of it. We went to Lottie's to eat. We came into Raytown to do our business. And I know that I'm going out of Raytown to meet my needs at this point, usually. So we got to look at the demographics and what we need and see about filling those spots.
Thank you. And we'll finish up with Ms. Mims.
Thank you, sir. I think what I'm going to start off with, one of the things that was brought up is the crime and murder rates that's happened in Raytown. Though a lot of those cases have been domestic violence. So I don't know how everyone is talking about how they want to change it. We have a strong police department that is dealing with that, some of that. But when you look at our murder numbers, and we're not the highest numbers of murders or of deaths or homicides that has been happening. So I wanted to make that clear. In saying that is one of the problems that is happening in Raytown. First, we need people to quit being spreading negativity about Raytown that live here in Raytown and start looking at bringing something positivity to that. And I think that part of that is communication among a lot of people, because when you spread fear, this is what happens. And I've been around it a long time, which I've worked in the Department of Mental Health for 42 years. And looking at some of the things that are happening right now makes you a little nervous, especially when you use terms like those people. What do those people mean? Because I've been around a long time, and it was very difficult in the earlier years to come into Raytown. So with the Rock Island coming through, we have to be positive and be inviting to people to come in. When it comes to businesses and stuff, we have to make sure that, we allow them, those that want to be productive people, and bring it in. I'm not looking at doing any taxes at this point, but we have people that do that kind of stuff. And our economic development person who has done a lot of things around and been very successful. If you look at Truman Corners, if you look at Martin City, just to share a few things that person has done. And so I would like to see some of that brought to Raytown.
That gets us off of that question, but it kind of, everybody's for economic development. So I'm making up a new question here. And I want you to be specific here. So we're gonna take the same order that we did on the last question. And the question becomes this. Name the specific things that are barriers to having Raytown being seen as attractive, and what specific incentives would you propose? So let's start with Mr. Myers.
Okay, Sandy, you kind of cut out on me. Can you say that one more time?
You bet. What are the things that you consider as barriers to having Raytown being considered attractive? So the specific distractions or detractions from Raytown, and what specific incentives would you use to get people to stimulate economic development?
Well, Raytown was originally developed in the 1950s, and we're a first tier ring of the Kansas City metro area. Obviously, as you know, real estate development from a city core moves outward. So, in its heyday, Independence Center, we're starting to move farther and farther out. So the more popular areas are, Adams Dairy Parkway and Blue Springs, or the Legends out in Wyandotte County. That's one of the obstacles that us in Raytown, we have to get creative and think outside the box. We're 10 square miles and we're 100% landlocked. So in order to attract new businesses, we're gonna have to get creative. In terms of incentives, I know we brought that up. In our financial audit, not the state audit, the auditors that came in, as well as the credit rating agency, they said that Raytown's financials are wonderful right now, and it would actually behoove us to bring on new debt. So one of the things that I have been working on with the Revenue Enhancement Committee is the formation of a GO bond. This would give us an opportunity to increase the level of our infrastructure, which I could see, we got a fair rating on that or a poor rating on that. I think that would attract more shoppers, more retail investment within Raytown. And I think that's probably the first stepping stone to bring Raytown to a seat at the metro-wide table.
Thanks very much, Ms. Hayden. What are the concerns you have to overcome from an appearance point of view, and what specific incentives do you think are available?
I think some of the barriers that we have is, again, as far as businesses or commercial and private residential, is that the Raytown is landlocked. We don't have a lot of places to build new homes and that are new businesses and that type of thing. We lack retail space, so people don't come to Raytown because we don't have a whole lot of retail businesses here for them that would draw them into Raytown. So we need to somehow, again, get creative and figure out how we can bring more retail businesses into Raytown. In order for people to come into Raytown, we have to give them a reason to come into Raytown. And right now, it's not a whole lot here to really come to Raytown for. So we need to somehow figure out a way to increase our retail. On business, as far as the incentives, bonds, grants, and a better process for new businesses coming in. I know that we have to have our processes and procedures, but somehow figure out a way to make it easier for businesses, again, to come into Raytown, to get into Raytown, maybe tweak or change the process for how businesses can come into Raytown and stay into Raytown. Give them an incentive to come here.
Thanks very much. Mr. Jacob.
Yeah, it's interesting that a person that was a benefactor of grants would want even more grants for their business. Mr. Myers, Alderman Myers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's in the commercial real estate side. And I believe rents in Raytown are fairly inexpensive as compared to other areas per square foot. So we do have some attractive things going for us as far as moving businesses here, and not just commercial applications like a grocery store or Chili's or an Olive Garden or something like that, but even adding light manufacturing. Raytown used to have a bunch of light manufacturing, and they've moved out from here, which is sad because that brought in jobs, but it also brought in people, and people typically don't travel 30 minutes on a lunch break. If they don't take their lunch to work, then they eat locally, which would help us with our sales tax revenue as well, getting more money from that. And then, like I said prior, making it easier to start a business in Raytown. It can be hard to make sure that you get all of the forms in the correct way and apply the correct way and use the right codes and have the right type of business. And many people have applied to Kansas City and thought that they were okay, only to 3 years later find out they were supposed to apply to Raytown instead. And we've missed out on the permits, we've missed out on the licensing fees, and then it becomes a big issue. So making everything clear and concise for businesses, startups would be great. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Scott?
I think that part of the problem is perception. And as Ms. Mims pointed out earlier, a good portion of that is how we talk about ourselves, how Raytown talks about ourselves, and how other people around the metropolitan area talk about Raytown. And if we in Raytown can start to correct how we talk about ourselves and how we talk about our town, we start to filter that conversation out to the areas around us. We talk about being landlocked, and Mr. Myers pointed out that right now, some of the most popular areas to go do stuff are on the outskirts of the metropolitan area. Well, that's true, but interestingly, if Raytown starts to seem more interesting and more attractive place for generally people to go to, we're pretty dead center in the metropolitan area. We're easy to get to from everywhere. So from here, it's about the same amount of time to get to the Legends or out to Blue Springs or, Independence, reaches of Independence. But from those edges, getting to the other edge is a lot longer, whereas everyone can get to Raytown in about the same amount of time. So even though we're landlocked, we're really quite an interesting destination as long as we can get creative on how we present and present a better image of ourselves.
Thank you. Let's see, let's go to Ms. Loulos. Hurdles and specific incentives.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, what are the hurdles specific things that are barriers right now for Raytown, and what are the specific means of incentivizing business?
Hurdles. I think the hurdle is that we had some thriving businesses, and it's an aging community, and we haven't replaced businesses that have gone out to incentivize. I think we need to figure out, again, the demographics and what the needs are, and really fill those needs with businesses that we can stay in Raytown and support Raytown with these businesses instead of going outside of Raytown. So I think we need to look at the demographics and maybe take it to the voters and see what the needs are.
Okay. Ms. Mims.
I think it's important for us to realize, look at our geographical location, which is very important. Because you can get, it pretty much reminds me of Bannister Mall, where that was the pulse for everybody before malls started popping up everywhere. That's how Raytown is at this point. The hurdles, for me, the hurdles is stop beating it up and start sharing what's good about it. Raytown is old, and a lot of the places in it are old. You got to start inviting businesses in. Let people come and see what it's about instead of pushing them all away. So I think when I look at the hurdles, it's like the stuff that you hear, and not looking at what the facts really are. And so when you look at what is the key that gets you to and from and in and out of Raytown, what is it that we need? I like to see us build up like I've seen the build up when, like I mentioned earlier about Truman Corners. I like to see that happen in some of the areas. We don't have a lot of areas. In the 5th District, we can't build anything over here because we have nothing but homes. But the basic area where you're looking at building is on 350, or you're looking at going down 63rd Street. So those are the areas that you got. We don't have anything to build up on 87th Street. If you look at the demographics here, so you got 10 square miles to work with, and then you got 350. So I'm not looking at doing any taxes, but allow those businesses that want to come to Raytown, allow them to come in. 350, I drove down as I was going to an appointment and, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on here to Mr. Jacob. And this question is a little bit of a tie-in. What's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. And it's something that I've put a lot of thought into because, I'm a big proponent for the broken windows theory of policing. And one of the things you'll notice as you drive around Raytown, you'll have amazing houses. And then you'll have somebody with a house that the owner is in California or New York, or is in somewhere else, has never seen the house a day in their life. And the grass is 3 feet tall. Gutters are falling down, everything else. And the city can't get a hold of those people. So I think by rehabbing and starting with that, holding our codes, actually starting to enforce those and holding those up, to especially out of town people, and then also residents that need help. There's some senior citizens that can't get out on a ladder and fix the gutters that fell down because of a storm. We need to partner with Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or veterans organizations and help them repair that. Not only will it beautify Raytown, it'll give us pride in the community. We used to do Raytown Roundup Days, and it used to be the place to come. And it was a great time, and everybody would pick up their trash. And I think that's what we need to get back to, is having pride in our community, fixing up the areas we already have before we go forward and try and build something else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Myers.
You know what? If you ask a real estate appraiser if new homes or renovated homes, like you asked Sandy, there's 2 general answers that an appraiser is going to give you, and it's the first one's going to be it depends, and the second one's going to be risk. Now, with the background of Raytown, like I said, we're 100% landlocked. We don't have the benefit of being in Mission Hills, where the land prices are so high that you have relatively newer homes that are being scraped and redeveloped because the demand is there. In order to increase demand, I will have to say that, Mr. Jacob, yeah, you're right. The rental regulations have helped. And I think in the future, those rental regulations are going to help increase the curb appeal and increase the property values within Raytown. And that's partial answer to your question, Sandy. But, what I want to focus on is making sure that the rental regulations do increase our curb appeal of our existing homes. And if there are some homes that, they're substandard, or, they're vacant and may need redevelopment, I think there's an opportunity there for new developers to come in and take advantage of.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hayden.
Okay, so I think, again, that it is, Raytown is landlocked, so we don't have the option of building new homes, new and beautiful homes, or a lot of them. I do see some rehab going on for some of the houses that are older. So I think that that is what we should do. We should really concentrate on rehabbing our current residential homes and making them better and more pleasing. I think that Raytown is an aging community, so we need to really help with those, maybe create a community organization where it's neighbors helping neighbors to help those neighbors that are in need, that may need some yard work done or gutters replaced or something to that effect. I think we need to just get creative with it because again, Raytown is an aging community and it's landlocked. So we need to rehab and make our community a whole lot better.
Thank you. Ms. Mims.
Okay, there's a lot of programs that we have that people can apply for assistance with home improvements. And also there's a young lady that's been helping our seniors with some of our youth. And there's a program that they have that last year they went around helping people with their yards, picking up limbs, tree pieces. It was just a whole array of things that they've done to assist some of our seniors in their homes. When I talked about some of the programs that have been done to help folks, I've also made sure and went out and helped people apply for paint and to get improvements for their homes. So some of our seniors don't know what these are, and we have to reach out to help them. And I've done that because a lot of them don't get into computers and know that. When you're involved in your community, which I haven't been able to walk about like I usually do, so a lot of them are calling and I'm sending them for assistance. For that, when we look at home repairs, what do we do as a person? What do you do as an elected official? If you are that concerned about your area, you start with a little piece and you work it. And in my area, that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years in home repairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. VanBuskirk, were you here for the question? You need to unmute yourself.
I got booted off and I don't know if I missed some other questions or not. If so, I'd like to be able to answer them.
Okay, I will allow you to answer the question you missed. And the question was, in earlier discussions, there was talk of incentives and talk of the barriers or misperceptions about Raytown. What are the barriers that need to be overcome in attracting economic development? And what specific incentive measures would you propose?
Okay, well, I serve on the Raytown Economic Development Corporation, and we look at businesses who are trying to acquire Chapter 353 tax incentives through the state. And so we have been able to assist a lot of businesses in our downtown area in getting assistance through that and get some tax breaks to make improvements on their businesses. We've had a number of them over the last several years, and others that usually apply every year. We have some new ones. As far as other areas of the city, the grants certainly is important that we get those when we can. Everyone has to remember that that's tax dollars, but sometimes because it's available to us, we need to reach out and try to get it. We've done that. We brought in millions of dollars through grants that have assisted us in many ways related to a lot of things, including economic development, but also the community development CDCs corporation. Those are incentives that have helped a number of businesses in our area. Sutherland Lumber is there because of that. Aldi's, GameStop, Chipotle, Jimmy John's, and a number of other businesses, we've been able to do that. Sometimes those types of things are good. Sometimes they can be a burden on taxpayers. We have to be careful when we allow those.
Thank you. Moving back to the question that we were discussing earlier, what's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, and better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? And for this, we'll go to Ms. Loulos.
Were you going to ask me that?
We'll come back to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
My opinion is, I think we need to work on rehabbing. I think before we start with new, we need to take care of what's falling apart first. And it should be less expensive, I think, to rehab something than to tear it all down and rebuild. But I think rehabbing is the route to go.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
I think the first and most important thing to evaluate when considering whether to put in something new or refurb something that's already there is efficiency. Is it going to be more cost and time efficient to refurb this thing or put in something now? And part of the consideration there is when this home or business building was originally constructed, does that construction align with current building codes and current business needs and current living needs? If it's going to cost time and resources to refurbish something that exists, if that's sometimes it's going to end up being one way or the other, that you could put in something new, or you could refurbish what's already there. And if you have an opportunity to serve a specific incoming potential family or business, there might be a better opportunity to take out what's there and put in something new, if that's going to be a better incentive for someone to move in and occupy that space versus having to get in and retrofit something that exists to try to make it suit their needs. But I do think the first option should be to refurbish what's already there rather than just tear something out and put something in automatically, put something in new.
Thanks very much. Mr. VanBuskirk, to you. Mute.
Sorry. The question is again, what?
Question is, what's more important for the city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing your existing homes and storefronts?
Well, government doesn't decide that. That's not what we're really in the business to do. It would be the private market that would decide that. And business owners and people who want to invest in homes. We've had a lot of people come and buy up some of the older homes and rehab them and move their families here and get some great deals. And we do have a limited amount of space where we can actually have new development for, that's true with businesses and it's true with residential development as well. But same thing with businesses. You know, if they want to come here and build a new business, we welcome them. If they want to fill some of these storefronts that are vacant, that's great. And we've had a lot of people come and do that. We still have some that need to be filled. You know, things have changed over the years from when we first moved here. There were a lot of businesses that thrived here at the time that you know, the market has dictated that those changes happen. We bought our shoes here for our kids. We had dress shops here. We had sporting goods stores here. We had all kinds of things at that time. And some of that has been taken over by other bigger corporations. And unfortunately, but some of these businesses, you can't get them to come here if they can't make a profit here.
Thank you.
But you can offer a percentage sometimes.
The next question, and this is going to go to Ms. Loulos. Concern has been expressed by the mayor and other Raytown leaders about low community involvement including open seats on boards and commissions. The first is, do you agree? And if so, what remedies do you suggest?
I somewhat agree. I think people aren't aware of these positions. And I think we need to figure out how to communicate better with the community, because I think people would step up. Also, I stepped up in the fall and wanted to be on the board, not the board, the committee to do with getting businesses back in Raytown. And I was overlooked. And now an alderman has been placed in that position because I was told that nobody had applied. I applied. I talked to the mayor himself. So I think we need to get the word out there and people will step up. And we need to be a little bit more organized so that when people do step up, we can get these positions filled.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mims, same question to you.
Before the pandemic hit, I started having town hall meetings to make sure people were aware of what the issues were, and they got to share what their concerns also to not only just to the board members, but to our staff. So that when the pandemic hit, we stopped having that. The mayor makes those decisions for those that's going to serve on the board. I have to say that if I was in that position, I would pick people that I knew that were qualified to make some tough decisions, and tough decisions come before you. People may not like it. As I tell people, I'm gonna give you the facts and I'll give you the truth. You may not like what my decision is, but this is how it is. So I make sure I give out the sound information, and I would like to make sure and hoping that our mayor does the same. So when people are looking for it, I always make sure I send them there. I'm not going to dictate the outcome. I make sure the information goes to who appoints.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jacobs, same question.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that there are some vacancies even now that could be filled by people that have already put in applications. Ms. Loulos is not the only person that I've heard that same song from. I've heard several people say that, and then other people will say, well, I applied for this position, but this board was offered instead, so I took that, even though their qualifications are for the first board. I think that's one of the issues that we have in Raytown is you got a small clique that wants to keep things within themselves. And so if you look, it's just people going from one area to another area and friends of friends and that sort of thing. Instead of bringing in people that don't share your ideas and your beliefs and maybe have a different, diverse opinion than you. I think that one of the things that we also have to be careful of, if you look at 3 of the races are uncontested for aldermen. We have an uncontested judge, an uncontested collector, and there's 2 ways of looking at that. The first is that they're doing amazing, and I would say for some that's pretty much the case. They have a great track record, and why mess with success? But for others, perhaps it's hard to get people when they see what happens when you run for office. People can be not very nice and make up all sorts of things, and then when you get elected, you can get screamed at from the lectern and the podium and whatnot. So it's not an easy job, and I think that that's something that people see, and maybe it might dissuade some of the qualified people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Myers?
Wrong button. Okay, so I'm going to take a different angle at this. The median age of Raytown is higher than most other communities within the metro area, and generally I would agree that we do have typically low community involvement. But I would say if you ask the city administrators for the majority of the cities within the metro area, I would generally say they're probably going to agree that participation is low. So one of the things that I know since we've gotten our new city administrator over the last couple of years is our how we embrace technology. I know that we've been more active on the city's Facebook. We've recently updated the city website just to make it more user friendly. Additionally, I know we have a Twitter and Instagram. I think we need to put more pressure on that because the younger generations are using technology almost 100%. As opposed to going back to what Alderman VanBuskirk was talking about, buying shoes here. And I remember him talking about some kind of Sears and Roebuck catalog or magazine that you order stuff off of. I don't know. So, recently, I believe that was last summer, I guess it was pre-COVID, Alderman Mims and I had the opportunity of working alongside the school district, and we got to meet with some of the students, and we got to tell them about what we do in municipal government and impact our community. And I think that needs to be a long-term goal of the city, is to work alongside our school district, work with our young people to get them involved down the road.
Thanks very much. Ms. Hayden.
Can you repeat that question for me, please?
Certainly. Concern has been expressed by the mayor and other Raytown leaders about low community involvement, including open seats on boards and commissions. Do you agree? And if so, what remedies do you suggest?
Well, I think that if the mayor said it and say that he is having issues with filling those positions, I believe it to be so. I think that first of all, we need to make sure that it's a positive experience. A lot of people even question why I would want to run for the seat as a board of aldermen, especially with some of the negativity from the community. So I think that we have to make being on a board, and a lot of these boards are volunteer boards or volunteer committees, but we attack people so hard at times that it's hard for us to encourage people to be involved. They don't want to be involved. They don't want to be involved in the negative, in a negative environment. So yeah, I think that the mayor appoints, and perhaps we need to do things like announce it in the Board of Aldermen meeting, update our Raytown community page to let them know that these positions are available and we are looking for qualified individuals to do that. So yeah, help the mayor to try to find people, make recommendations. I'm on a committee a board that we actually ask the board members to send recommendations for someone we believe is qualified and capable of doing that position. So I think making it a positive experience is big.
Thank you, Mr. Buskirk.
It's close, it's VanBuskirk, but that's not the first person that's made that mistake.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. Just kidding you. Well, it is difficult to get people to want to serve. And certainly I encourage people all the time to serve on committees. It takes time, it takes commitment, and some people are just not willing to do that. Also, we try to, certainly I think the mayor tries to fit the right people in with the right committee that have expertise in that area. It's, I've talked to students, schools, and participating in different activities over the past few months. I've talked to a number of students in our schools and encouraged them to be more active in city government and their parents and people just in the community here in general. And I have had a few people that have volunteered to serve on some of those committees and been willing to do that. And it's an ongoing challenge that I think the mayor is going to continue to have problems doing that. He makes those picks, he brings them to us, and we approve them or not. And 99 times out of 100, we do approve them if he's recommended them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott.
It's interesting. This question touches pretty directly on one major facet of my experience as a first-time candidate here, and that is that I've had moments of being pretty head swum about everything that there is going on in this city, and I think that my experience is not particularly unusual. I think we've got we've got two things going on hand in hand. One is a lack of communication and awareness of what roles there are that people can participate in. And the other, as has been pointed out, is that among people who do know about the available roles and jobs that need to be done, a lot of it comes with a negative reputation of being a contentious, unfortunate, heavy burden kind of undertaking. And that again is something that communication can address. Not only saying here's these needs to serve the city, but here's how we want to cooperate among people with varying viewpoints instead of attacking each other, everybody listening to each other, discussing through stuff and finding the best way to move forward that benefits Raytown and the people of Raytown with a change of perception and an increase in awareness of what's going on. I think we could attack this situation.
Thanks very much. We're going to stay with you. The city's general plan and design guidelines need to be updated regarding zoning in the commercial area. What would you suggest? If you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why? So we'll stay with you, Mr. Scott.
Well, you would, so as a first time candidate, my question to start on happens to be one that I'm not particularly well versed in this, but if I have the honor of being elected, I'm excited for the opportunity of learning about this particular topic and working with the city of Raytown, the city administrator and his staff, listening to the voters about their opinions on all this and finding the best way to move forward.
Thanks very much. Mr. VanBuskirk.
Well, any changes would need to be made with the certainly foremost thing would be not to place any burden or undue burden or extra burden on businesses that want to locate here and on people who want to make their home here and changes they want to make to their residences. And sometimes those things can be a burden. I think we have to be very careful not to do that and over-regulate. I'm not a fan of a lot of regulation. I think this government needs to keep their fingers and their hands out of most of that and let people do what they naturally do. And there are some things that are required for safety reasons. When when you have a business coming in, there's certain requirements that need to be there and certain regulation that's for safety reasons. But many times we start getting into other areas that we really shouldn't, and the government shouldn't even be involved in.
Thank you. Ms. Loulos.
I guess you would look at it, if there was an idea of rezoning, you'd have to weigh the benefits against the risk of what you're trying to change. I agree with well, I don't know the first name, Mr. VanBuskirk. I think keeping the government out as much as possible is the best, and letting people do what they need to do is the best idea. But I think any zoning, you would look at the situation and then see if it benefited that area.
Thanks very much. Next one to Mr. Myers.
I'm going to argue that our zoning really doesn't need any changes. I am a firm believer that zoning is a good thing. I really don't want to see Raytown become Houston, Texas, where they have no zoning regulations whatsoever. That may work for them, but realistically, planning and zoning can make or break a city. And I think that we have a great planner in our economic development department, which I've touched on previously. I know, at least within my tenure and my first term as an alderman, we've implemented some tweaks to our planning and zoning code, which has mitigated our risk associated with fire or loss of life. I see that as being a positive thing and not a negative thing. So realistically, I think that we have done a superior job so far, and I don't see any reason to change the zoning in particular, unless you have any details, Sandy.
Those were the questions. Ms. Hayden.
I think that we have a board that handles that type of thing, the planning and zoning. I don't know necessarily that was that would need to be changed or how we can make that better. I'm not familiar enough with the process to really give an expert opinion on that. However, I do know with me being a small business owner, that anything that we do to try to mitigate the anxiety of bringing a business into Raytown, we need to try to work on that. Because, you know, I've moved 3 times in Raytown, and each time it's been, you know, a little easier for me to go through the processes and procedures. So if we can try to work with that business or work with that homeowner to try to mitigate those anxieties, I think that would be what we need to do to make it better.
Thank you. Ms. Mims.
And listening to the question, it kind of leads me to some things that I've seen that's happened, and there's always some personal agendas that it brings forth. And I look at the fact that we have a planning and zoning committee, and basically they update themselves according to the guidelines for a fourth class city. I don't want to go in there and try to tell them how to do their job. I'll wait till it comes before us. And then if it's something that we see that needs to be changed or something that needs to be enhanced, then we send that. And that's what we do on factual grounds. So I just have to say that I welcome anything or anybody, but it's just the way that you go about it.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs, you get to wrap this one up.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Board of Aldermen is the legislative branch. They're the end all be all for all statutes, all ordinances, all resolutions, all rules of the city. So they definitely have oversight over the area. I'd like to echo what Alderman Myers said, that Chris Gilbert, the guy in charge of planning, is amazing. He's well known for his work in Grandview and bringing them up right before he came back to Raytown. So we're lucky to have him. I think that one of the things to also note is Miss Hayden. You know, she's on a board, she has inside connections, and she has even found it difficult at times. Although it's getting easier, it's still not easy. And somebody with inside connections that doesn't find it easy, people without those connections should have no hope. And so we've got to change that and make it easier to do business in Raytown. It reminds me of some people that have come to the board and they've had their complaints of their businesses. You know, there's if your transmission repair, you can't change oil. There's a tire shop that got in trouble because they were mounting tires and they weren't allowed to mount tires because of a conditional use permit. They had to reapply for a different type of business. I mean, who thinks that is okay is just, I have no idea. So readjusting our conditional use permits to make it common sense even would be a good improvement. And then making, besides just the equitability, making it easier to do business in Raytown is definitely something we need to do. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Excuse me, Ms. Hayden. The next one is a little bit in the planning area. How do you feel about the transportation options currently available in your city? Do we have enough options? If not, what will you do to increase those?
Well, I just remember talking in the Board of Aldermen meeting, talk about our transportation. I think that the rails and trails, the trails that are coming through are going to be another form of transportation. So that's going to be really good for Raytown because it's coming straight through Raytown. I have a mother that's disabled, and I have to drive her to Kansas City limits for her to catch share ride to go back and forth to daycare. So I would just like to see us have a connection with those types of services for our seniors, for our disabled, to make it a little bit better for our people in Raytown.
Thank you. Mr. Scott. Same question.
As Ms. Hayden pointed out, the trails coming through provide a fun and interesting new avenue of connection between our neighboring communities. But there are services that provide good, accessible options for seniors and for people who can't drive themselves around that aren't as readily available here in town. And I would like to see the options for bringing those into Raytown more, and how we can better serve our communities and right where they're at, specific neighborhoods. And I'm excited to work with the city staff on evaluating what we've got right now and how we can improve things moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
I know in terms of transportation, we do partner with the Kansas City ATA. I think we spend roughly $60,000 a year for bus service. One of the unique challenges within the metro area is that, the Kansas City metro area is one of the most sparsely populated metro areas within the country. It takes a long time to get from place to place. We don't have the population density, which would increase the efficiency of public transit. I know Kansas City has made leaps and bounds in terms of population density and public transit by implementing the streetcar and the streetcar extension. Hopefully one of these days we can have Jack Ivey's vision of having light rail coupled with the trail come into fruition. I think that's going to help with public transportation. We can get downtown, or we can get down to the stadiums. I think that'd be a really good economic development driver because it comes down to population density and transport of the public.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. Looking at KCATA, we do spend a lot of money on that program, and it doesn't give no cost service. It gives subsidized cost. And so I think one thing we need to do is look at alternatives that are more economical, not just for the city, but also for the residents that use that, the few that do. I think that, lowering it to just ATA, lowering it to just the trail, Raytown is not a walkable city. Our walkability score is abysmal. And one of the things that I appreciate, if I'm not mistaken, it was Mayor Pro Tem Myers that was pushing forward for the sidewalks to go to middle school and make it safe for kids. Perhaps I'm misattributing, but that was one of the things that I know got done recently, is adding safety in the transportation of getting youth to safe places like school, since not everybody is afforded a bus stop. Improving the sidewalk, or making a sidewalk that now you see the construction on 350 in the Walmart area. I've had many friends of mine that would love to ride bikes or to walk to Walmart, and they can't because it's a highway. It's hard to push a stroller on a highway. It's not safe. So improving our walkability score would be one of the top things as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Loulos.
I guess two things. The walkways, I think we need to improve our sidewalks so that people can get out. And then addressing, as a former person on here said, about our seniors and our disabled, we need to have affordable transportation that they can get to and access more easily, whether it's doctor appointments or if they want to go to the grocery store or whatever it is, that it's affordable and easy to access.
Thank you, Mr. VanBuskirk.
Okay, well, as Mr. Myers was pointing out, we do have the rideshare program. We've been involved in that for many years. The cost has been going up, and unfortunately, we had to reduce the number of routes we had because of that. But the riders pay very little to use that. That brings back very, very little in revenue. Almost all of that is subsidized by the city or by the county, and by the county and by the state and by the federal government. They all kick in funds to help with that. The cost would be much, much higher than he stated. I think we pay something like maybe $60,000 a year right now for that, but the total cost is much more than that. We have been looking at alternatives that would provide better transportation for seniors and others who need that type of transportation. We've been looking at that for years. There's a possibility through the Area Transit Authority that they may be able to come up with some new idea. They're talking about some new ideas and things that might help us with that. But we have limited funding again for those kinds of things, and limited funding for new sidewalks. They cost a lot of money, but we put them in whenever we can, and we have.
Thank you. Ms. Mims, we'll let you take this last item, and then we're going to go to closing statements.
We do have programs for our senior citizens and I know a lot of people don't know it, but one of them is the whole person, and they help with our disabled and our seniors. I have 5 people that applied last year for some assistance, and they do take them to the places that they need to go. You have to apply for it. I also looked at down 63rd Street when some of the businesses that are in there was hiring some of our youth. I did talk to AT and ATA and to make sure, along with John Ivy, about the bus being extended out a little more so those kids could have a way to and from home. And so looking at that was a safety mechanism for them likewise. You know, transportation, again, one of it is to make sure that we're respected and we're put on the map and the negativity stopped so that those programs and things that are out there would be more welcoming to come in and assist our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Mims, we're going to start with you and work backwards in our order on closing statements. So you have 2 minutes to wrap it up for yourself.
My name is Bonnaye Mims. I serve Ward 5. I have done, I think, a great job for the ward and for the people. I listen to my constituents. I make sure that what they have or what they need, I carry it forward to make sure. Sometimes they don't get the outcome that they want, but I make sure that they know they've been heard. I look forward to seeing you all at the polls on April 6th and look forward to your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
I'm Ian Scott, and I think I said this earlier, but I live and work and go to church here in Raytown. My wife and I are raising our 5 children here in Raytown. We love it in here. We love it here in Raytown. My kids have numerous favorite teachers at Blue Ridge Elementary. Our youngest is not very patiently excited to start preschool in the fall, bouncing off the walls excited, in fact. And I'm running for Alderman in Ward 1. I'm a first-time candidate. And this whole experience, even if I'm not elected, this whole experience has been wonderful in the sense that whether elected or not, I'm gaining a lot of information, a lot of insight, a lot of perspective on the needs of the people around me. And that's one of the things that I hope to bring if I am elected, is a passion for my community that I can spread to my neighbors and the people of Ward 1 and the people of Raytown in general, is caring about each other, caring about our city, caring about the people, your neighbors on your street, in your neighborhood, across our community and city. Cooperation and coordination are going to be some of the keys to moving forward and improving our city, how we treat each other, how we talk to each other, how we talk about ourselves and each other. And I look forward to for the opportunity to serve as a positive asset in that process and work with our city administration to get into the nitty-gritty of how we accomplish some goals for economic improvement and infrastructure improvement. But most of all, I want to be an asset and an ally for the people around me, especially Ward 1, but all of Raytown, and that people know that they can come to me and they're going to be heard, they're going to be listened to, and I'm going to fight for their needs.
Thank you very much. Mr. Myers.
Well, I'm honored to have served my first term in Ward 3, and I'm looking forward to the future in Ward 3. You know, my first term was laser focused on, making sure our budget was prioritized and to make sure that we weren't bleeding funds and to work on rental regulations. My second term, I'd really like to focus on another C word that, Mr. Scott was talking about, and that's going to be collaboration. I want to be able to collaborate with my colleagues on the Board of Aldermen, my 2 new colleagues, whoever those 2 may be. Additionally, I want to collaborate with the mayor. And, I'm in the northern part. My ward is the northern portion of the city of Raytown. That portion has 3 sides surrounded by Kansas City. So I also want to collaborate with our colleagues in Kansas City for the betterment of our community as a whole. So I'm looking forward to working with the mayor, as well as Councilman Robinson and Councilman Ellington in Kansas City, as well as Mayor Lucas. I think we can, when we collaborate, we can do greater good for the city of Raytown, and I'm looking forward to that. And I make sure you get out and vote on April 6th.
Thanks very much. Mr. Jacob.
Thank you. As many people can see, I've got about a third of my books behind me. I'm an avid reader and a lifelong learner. And one of the best things that I've learned is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And so I'd like to make sure that everybody knows my why, the reason that I'm running and the reason that I want to be on the Raytown Board of Aldermen. And that's because I've watched and judged youth debate here in Raytown, and I've seen the quality of our students. I've seen the quality of students in surrounding communities, and our youth deserve a vibrant place to grow up. They deserve a community that has reduced violence, not increased violence. They deserve a community where they can walk safely and that they don't have to pay $1 gajillion to fix their car because of the infrastructure problems. It just brings me back as far as working with everybody, brings me back to my work in the community, not just here, but abroad. I've spent the better part of 2 decades in different parts of the world, whether it's with hurricane relief down in Louisiana and Mississippi, or fires in California, or even in Mexico, Peru, and Taiwan on relief work. So all over the place, I've been in relief work, and then here at home, helping people, neighbors that need help fixing their houses or with simple yard chores and that sort of thing, and being a good member of the community, a good steward. And then finally, I just want to make sure that one of the things that's been mentioned is the positivity. And one of the things I don't want to do is ignore the issues. I don't want to ignore them. I want to address them. So I want to find out where the problem is and then come up with a solution. And I think that that's something that I'm well capable of doing, not just because of my military experience, but the experience that I've been able to show with my work with the community. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters and all of the members of the committee. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Loulos.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak and share what is my concerns and what I'm hoping to address as Alderman in Ward 1, but it would affect all wards. But if the people of Ward 1 are concerned about the violence and crime and getting our streets repaired and looking at maybe getting more police hired, then those are my same concerns. And I think they've been heavy on my mind, and you think the next person's gonna do the job, but sometimes you have to step up yourself, and I'm ready to step up.
Thank you very much. Mr. VanBuskirk.
Thank you. Well, I think there's 3 key words that we need to look at in serving that are certainly key to me, and that's honesty, commitment, and dedication. And I just wanted to, again, tell you a little bit about myself. I worked for Hallmark Cards in the graphic arts field for over 40 years, retired from there a number of years ago. I served as a police officer here in Raytown for over 10 years, proudly served. And I'm a member of a number of committees. I former Mayor Pro Tem. It's vitally important that we are elected are people of character, motivated for the right reasons, with a desire to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of Raytown. My purpose for running hasn't changed. It's to serve the people of this city, to make it a better place to live. A person who serves as an alderman should be willing to ask tough questions related to the issues confronting them. Sometimes compromise is warranted, but in order to properly serve the people you represent, it's imperative that you stand up for what's right. If you're the only one standing, and sometimes that's been the case, and I'm sure it will sometimes in the future, honesty, commitment, perseverance, and dedication are essential character qualities for any elected official if they're going to be successfully serve the people they represent. The safety and security of our city has always been and will continue to be a priority for me. We have a great chief of police that we've appointed. He's doing some fantastic things with our police department, and I'm excited about that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Hayden?
So several years ago, I looked out and I saw a need for more cohesiveness and diversity in our city, especially among our leaders. It is my belief that in order for our Board of Aldermen to effectively represent the people of Raytown, it needs to reflect the people of Raytown. Therefore, I made the decision to run for Alderman because I'm a long time resident of Raytown and owner of a small business. So I have a vested interest in the good of Raytown. I've been active in this community for a very long time. When my kids were in school, I was a part of the school district. They saw me regularly there. I am active member of the Raytown Chamber of Commerce. I serve on several boards. I think that aldermen are elected to represent the people, and that we should set aside our personal agendas and our likes or dislikes and make decisions that are in the best interest of the people that we serve. So I have priorities that I got from hearing the concerns from family, friends, and neighbors in this community. It is important for all who call Raytown their home that our neighborhoods are safe, that our neighborhoods are maintained and revitalized, and that we do things to encourage economic development. We need to work with the Board of Aldermen, with the mayor, with city staff to make Raytown a more cohesive community. It would be important to me to listen more than we actually speak, and then actually hear what our community wants. I think that we need to work harder at collaborating and making this community a more positive place to live, work, and play.
Thank you very much. I want to turn it over to Mr. Myers, who wanted to speak a little bit on a ballot question. Mr. Myers?
Okay, so in addition to 5 aldermen on the ballot, there will be 1 question on the ballot for voters in the city of Raytown. So since the incorporation of the city of Raytown in the 1950s all the way up until the early 2000s, the job of city collector was originally a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. Since the implementation and since computers have blown up and automation in the early 2000s, nearly all of the duties required of the city collector have been eliminated or have become obsolete. Due to this modernization, it's time for the city collector position to be eliminated. For this reason, the city is asking voters to change from an elected collector to an appointed collector, as we still have to have a city collector being a 4th-class city. That's really all I have. So if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Well, that's going to bring it to a close tonight. We ran a little over, but we had a lot of good questions and a lot of interesting answers. So I want to say on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the Raytown Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, thank you very much for joining us. Before the election, take a look at your ballot, which you can find on our homepage at lwvkc.org, and click on Vote 411. Find out your ballot, and please vote on April 6th. Again, thanks to all the candidates and to all of you for joining us in empowering voters. Good night.